Yo, welcome Flyffers. So today we want to take a look at the Jester, to be more specific at the 1v1 Jester. Little joke by side, Jester is the only class that doesn't have a reliable AoE skill, so there's only going to be a 1v1 Jester guide for this one. But before we jump right into the video, I noticed that only 85% of the viewers are subscribed to the channel, and let's make a deal. You watch this video till the end and I'm sure I earned your subscription by then. So now let's take a look what we are covering in this video. We will take a look at what kind of items you will use as a Jester, what kind of weapons you will use, what kind of jewelry, which kind of skills are good, what's the different playstyles you can go for, and this will already be covered. And now let's take a look how the Jester is actually evolving. Similar to the Ranger, the Jester is choosing Acrobat at level 15 at his first job change. And there will be guides for first and second job change soon, so be patient on those, but you will get all those information. And as soon as you're able to level 60, you will be able to be a Jester and move on from the bow to having two yo-yos that you're basically throwing at the enemies and they are coming back like a boomerang and you're dealing a lot of damage, having high crit rate and stuff like that. That's unique for the Jester. So what is important about a Jester? We said he is 1v1 and his main stat is STR, which will increase his damage and attack. And he does need to balance out his crit rate. So he needs dexterity for attack speed, crit rate, hit rate and block. And as the most 1v1 characters, he will benefit really strongly from crit damage, which is the highest damage source in Flyff. And since we are fighting mobs, we do need a base amount of stamina and HP, so we're actually able to kill them, and because they do fight back, and we can't just kill them and one-shot them. To have a specific amount of damage at certain levels, we need to hit different cast breaks, different damage breaks and attack speed breaks here. So at level 60 you should have about 60 dex, and at level 90 you should have about 126 dex. And the rest you will put into STR, and this will give you the best DPS. Note, this is the amount of dex that should be displayed when you press H, and not the amount of dex that you should stat. So this is only display amount. If you reach this with like statting, power-ups, whatever, it doesn't matter. This is just what needs to stay on your H display from the character information. Now let's take a look what they should look like at certain levels. At level 60, you should have about 4k health, about 85% attack speed, so you can get to 100% with the GT. You will have about 75% crit chance and a bit of crit damage here. And at level 90, you will have about 5.4k health, about 85% attack speed, which you can again get to 100% with GT. And you will already be close to 100% crit chance and already started to pile up a bunch of crit damage to get going. And hit rate, yeah, we don't have to talk about it. Your hit rate will always be amazing. So let's take a look what sets you actually need to achieve level 90. This is pretty similar to the Rangers. So early on, while you're still full dex in your build, you will be putting a lot of auto attacks out. So hit rate is good, and you will try to combine two parts from the slap-in set with the layered set for a 20% hit rate. I do not recommend farming this, but if it drops, that's fine. And while you are leveling, you will try to complete the set for the additional crit chance or attack speed bonus, but don't worry if you don't get it, it's not worth farming or buying, because at level 45 you will already have one of the best early game sets as an Acrobat with additional crit damage, and we already learned we are using a bunch of dex to get our crit rate up, so we can benefit from the crit damage right here. And since we are keeping this set from level 45 till level 90, we can already go with a +8 here and 16% attack. And then at level 90, we will switch into the Restore set. And as we see right here, we do have a 10% crit damage increase and a bit more STR. And we also have a bit more hit rate, which is the reason why I recommend only doing this at up to +6. So you're maintaining your good hit rate. If you have the funds, you can go for +8, since in Flyff Universe set effects also give like damage attributes like attack percent and stuff like that. But you will only keep the set from level 90 to 105. So I think you're fine here with saving some bucks for your +6, and then at the 105 set go full man mode and +10 at 28% attack and stuff like that. So now let's take a look which weapons we should use while we're leveling along. I prefer using bows early on. You can use yo-yos as well, but I just prefer bows since they're full decks. It works out better. The bow of accuracy is pretty good if you're hitting it at level 15 because of the 10% hit rate, but it's not a farming recommendation, so it's not as reliant. The flaming bow is also really good. I do not recommend farming it. If you see someone selling it, I would try to buy it instantly, because this bow will be easy sold all the time. Many players will be looking for it, so it's an easy sell afterwards. Once you are level 60, you will change from using bows to going into yo-yos. And with the Guardian yo-yo that you will keep until 75, you can already go with a +8 and +6 element upgrade, as this will also be easy to sell afterwards. And then you're going into the historic yo-yo that you will keep until 105. And since you're keeping it for such a long time, I do recommend trying to push it to +10 and +10 element. Now, the jewelry is pretty similar to something like a 1v1 plate. You're based on STR, which means you're either using a strength or a vigor, and your demolds are giving you additional damage. So it's either demol earring or might tier. And for your necklace, you will use a bit of a defensive setup like a gore necklace or a pep that gives you HP and HP restoration. And as usually, the green parts are drops from clockworks that are rare to get. So try to just buy the most amount of stats that you can get for your bucks. Don't be like, oh, I want the green one. There can be vigor rings that have a better value, for example, for your buck. Now let's take a look about the passives. He does have a bit more than the ranger, for example. So one utility that is pretty good in even 1v1, because you will not food as much as the perfect block with 20%. And we are using yo-yos, as we already said. So the yo-yo attack will be an option. I said that we are able to use bows early on. So if we are doing bows early on, of course you need to level the bow mastery as well, but that should be kind of obvious. And then you will just don't need it anymore later. But there's enough skill points on the jester to go for the bow mastery as well, if you don't want to use yo-yos early. Then afterwards you're going with the enchant poison, just adding 5% attack, but it also has a 30% chance to add a poison effect on the enemy that will give a damage over time effect and slowly chip it down. And then my most favorite self buff in all of Flyff is the critical swing with 40% crit chance, which is just amazingly strong and will give you a really insane peak at level 65 once you're able to get it going. And similar to the ranger, you have the utility skills like dark illusion. Maybe you ran out of food, or for whatever reason you want to go invisible, losing the aggro of the mob, you can go right here. But be careful if there's mates around in your party and you're going into DI, the mates will get attacked, so use this carefully and don't kill your friends. And as well, Fast Walker, if you're trying to gap from a mob, there's not a lot going on. For example, I do recommend using it all the time. So, we said a lot about auto attacks, crit rate, crit damage and stuff like this. But the Jester now also has a reliable additional dot with the deadly swing that he can cast on enemies. And of course, my favorite attack of all Flyff is the hop, the hit of Panya, that is dealing a quite high amount of damage with a pretty low cooldown of only 8 seconds. The only downside to using this skill is it does cost Panya to use. So you need to Yeah, it just like if you're able to maintain the cost of the skill for using it to level by PvE, or you only want to use it for PvP or certain situations. This is up to you and your funds. Now let's take a look at the skill tree. As I already mentioned, we are a yo-yo jester, so we want to have the yo-yo mastery up. This is our dot right here. This is our defense with 20% block rate. Here we have the utility skills, fast worker and dark illusion. And then we are having the enchant poison as a self buff and a critical swing. And if you can afford it to pay the Penya, you can also use the hit of Penya to constantly chip down the mobs. If you want to level with the bow early on, you can go with the bow mastery. If you do want to level with the bow and use skills, I recommend going back to the ranger guide where I cover which skills are basically good for bow leveling early on. So now let's finish up with the playstyle right here. As always, I do recommend not double clicking mobs to attack them. Press O, go to motion, search for the attack motion, put it down on your taskbar. And then your combination and your main benefit basically is when you want to start killing a mob, you will go with Deadly Swing, applying the damage over time effect, and then you will auto attack and hope to proc the poison effect that is coming from your enchant poison self buff. And once those are both procced, you can start chipping them down. And the hit of Penya has an 8-second cooldown. So usually like you kill one mob without hop, then the next mob you're using a hop on. So you have some kind of like auto attack and skill kind of player that has to switch forward between auto attacks and skills all the time. Yeah, so now we already come to the end of the video. I hope I earned your subscription by now. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask in the comments down below. And it would be nice if you liked the video. Cheers.